Hello there guys, this is Solid Shepard bringing you another video, and today we are talking about Outriders. Now I know when I originally saw it in that trailer, in that Square Enix presentation, I didn't really seem very interested in it, but it was free for Xbox Game Pass, so I decided, hey, I'll go ahead and give it a shot. So in this video I talk about what I think of the game, my feelings, my opinions on it. Is it good? Is it bad? In what areas is it good? In what areas is it bad? Let's get into it. So first we're going to start off with gameplay. First we're going to start off with the controls. The controls are a tad clunky, but they're not quite tank controls. Like, I don't know, like the controls work a lot like they do in like Destiny and the Mass Effect games and everything. It's very much kind of at least set out to be like a cover-based shooter. But unlike those games, it feels a little bit slower, almost like your character's kind of being weighed down a little bit. Now, the developers who made this game, I do believe this is their first time tackling this kind of game. So I can give them a pass there. It works, it does the job, it's just not as smooth and fluid maybe as some of these other games. These other cover-type based shooter games. There are 4 classes you can choose from in the game. There is the Technomancer, which I personally chose. There is the Devastator, the Trickster, and the Pyromancer. Now, the only one I personally have experience with is the Technomancer, so that's the only one I can really speak on. I do know that I watched a video of Mr. Matty Plays. I think he said he was the Devastator. I believe that's the melee class. Pyromancer is like fire. Like, you can shoot out fire and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure about Trickster. I don't want to speak on something I haven't personally played. So for Pyromancer, you can go check out Mr. Matty Plays, what he thought about it. I played Technomancer though. It's very kind of like, it's kiting. Anyone who plays fighter games knows what kiting is. It's kind of like that. It's a pretty fun class. You got turrets you can set up. You have a rocket barrage that you can send out. It's pretty fun. I really enjoy it. And one unique thing about the class, I think it's for all classes in this game. At the very least, it is for Technomancer. When you do damage with your skills, you actually regenerate health. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of... The cover comes in useful. It comes in useful. But when you're constantly regenerating health by doing damage... you don't need it as much as you need in a lot of other cover-based shooter games. It's almost like the cover's more there for the enemies than it is necessarily for you. Speaking of the enemies using the cover, I will say that the AI in this game seems to be a lot better than it is in most cover shooters. The enemies will flank you. They won't just sit back and all that. They will flank you, at least to the point where like they'll have an angle. Like they'll have an angle that they can like shoot you at. And they can actually get you behind your cover. They'll throw grenades trying to flush you out of cover. And like I said, they will flank you. They will literally come around to where you are, and they won't just sit back. While other guys are doing cover fire, they'll actually come up into your face. So you can't just sit in one place all the time. So if you like a challenge in your cover-based shooters, the AI is definitely there. And speaking of that, there is good enemy variety, okay? You have snipers, incinerators, shock troops, and normal soldiers. So let's go over that. Okay, so you have snipers. So obviously people will be like up on rooftops, up high, like with laser pointers shooting you. And those things, not only do they do more damage, but they also kind of like stun your character. And then you're going to have incinerators. They're these big guys. They're basically the pyromancers. They come with these big, huge flamethrower guns, and that can overwhelm you if you get a couple of those guys plus some normal soldiers attacking you. That can overwhelm you really quick. Then you have shock troops, so you'll be dealing with snipers and normal soldiers and all that with their cover, and then suddenly you'll have these shock troopers just run in out of nowhere, and they will come up to your face and just start doing melee damage to you. So you got to take care of them, because they will literally knock you out of your cover. And then you have the normal soldiers, the guys, that are behind the cover, behind like the barrels or piles of bags or whatever it is, and they will, pop up and shoot you. Your basic cover shooter enemies. You also, okay, so out of those different types of enemies, you also have different variants of those enemies. I'm not going to get too into spoilers until we talk about story. The story segment, which I'm saving it for last on the video. And that even's just going to cover like the basic beginning of the story, the premise of it. But there are different factions basically on this planet, and they all have their own variations of all those different kinds of enemies. And then you also have different wildlife enemies. So like animals and stuff, and they range basically from these grunts that are basically like the shock troopers. Then you have the bigger, tougher guys. There's bigger guys, more health, they're more bullet spongy. Some of them can like leap really fast and close in on you, longer distances. And then you also have these guys that will sit back at a distance, and they can they spit out, like they vomit out these toxic projectiles that will do damage over time on you. And then on top of that, there's also a range of different boss types that use a bunch of different range of abilities and strategies. Even like animals, there's different types of wildlife bosses you'll encounter that are tougher than normal varieties. And then you'll run into some more humanoid types as well that have powers much like you do. You got guys who'll conjure like flame tornadoes and all kinds of different stuff, different abilities. There are people who have powers like you do, abilities like you do, and you got to deal with them. They're going to be a lot tougher than your normal enemies. Also, while we're on the topic of gameplay, one thing to note, you have different world tiers. World tier 1 is like easy mode, tier 2 like normal, 3 hard, 4 very hard, like that. Kind of basic, but basically the higher it is, the harder it's going to be, but the more better rewards you're going to get. In my experience with the game, tier 1 and tier 2 are probably where you want to be if you're playing by yourself, and then go to tier 3 and tier 4 if you have friends, if you have more help playing it, because it is a multiplayer game. You can bring your friends in, y'all can play together. Don't know if I'd suggest playing on those harder ones though if you're by yourself. I feel like I think those were designed for multiple players. And from what I've seen, like side quests and stuff, you can actually go back and replay some side quests and stuff, but you're not going to be able to out-level the content, because from what I've seen, like, they generally level up with you, so it doesn't matter when you do them. So don't think like, oh, I'll level up and I'll go replay these old quests and I'll just be at my level now and I'll be able to have it world tier 4. It doesn't work that way. One thing to note is I did have one single crash while playing, but I did go ahead and enable crossplay, and there were reported issues of crossplay having issues. The game even told you, like, whenever you logged in about that, so I went ahead and turned it off and never experienced another crash again. So I did have one crash, but I'm pretty sure it was due to the crossplay issues, so just be aware of that. I believe they are trying to fix it, though. And then finally, one thing I've noticed that's kind of annoying is shaky cam. There's a lot of shaky cam during cutscenes and dialogue conversations. Now, luckily, what you can do is you can go into the options and you can there's a slider you can, I don't know if it was a slider or an option, but basically it's an option that can smooth out the shaky cam during the cutscenes and conversations. But there is kind of a weird camera angle sometimes in cutscenes and dialogue conversations as well. It's just a weird camera angle that like has stuff that gets in the way. It's not really a deal breaker, but it is something to mention. But yeah, if you get motion sickness really easy, make sure when you start the game, you go in the options and you deal with that shaky cam option, because trust me, it'll save you a lot of dizziness and headaches. Okay, so next we have customization. First we have the character creator. It's very basic. I hope you like brown hair or gray hair, because that's about all you get. You get about like a certain amount of choices of like head shape. They have like preset faces, so you only have a certain option of that. I didn't really like a lot of the choices. They're, to me, the best looking face that I could find in the character creation screen was, at least because I was playing a female character, was this one Asian female face was probably the best looking one. Now, I did decide to go back, because you can actually go back at any time at your camp during the game and go back into the editor and change the face. I actually went with the first face of the white female, and it doesn't look good in the character creator, but I thought it actually looked pretty good, decent in the actual game world. So keep that in mind. Not all the faces look exactly like they do in the creator as they're going to be in real life, which is with most creators. But really, the character creator, it could have left a lot to be desired. But once again, it's like this new studio. It's never done anything like this before. Go ahead and give them a pass in the first game. Now, something about this game, it is a looter shooter, and it really puts the loot in the looter shooter. There are many diverse weapons and armor, a lot of options. Some of them looking more tribal, some look kind of organic, and some look more standard. Like I said, weapons, armor. There's a lot of weapons and armor. They all have very wide-ranging looks, from like almost looking like you're a duster, like you're from the Fallout universe, you know, wearing like a big leather trench coat or whatever, to just full-on wearing like futuristic armor. Like there's all kinds of cool-looking loot, the weapons, the armor, all of it. You have to play it and see them for yourself. It's really hard to kind of describe all of them. There's a lot of different looks in the game. It definitely did better on the loot aspect than like Anthem and games like that have done in the past, especially Anthem. So when you're carrying, your weapons in the actual game, you can have 3 weapons equipped. There's 1 sidearm. Now there are a range of different looks for sidearms as well. They're like pistols. They're like pistols. But then you have 2 like back weapons, bigger weapons that you can fill. So you basically have 2 slots, and there's a wide variety of different types. Okay, you have shotguns, automatic shotguns, rifles, automatic rifles, and sniper rifles. So you only have 2 slots for all those, and like I said, of all those types, there are a bunch of different looking weapons that work differently. There's just a lot of cool stuff, and you gotta decide what you want to put in just those 2 slots and actually use. So I think that's very fun. As of now, unfortunately, there is no transmog system, so that does kind of suck with the game that has this much options as far as like cosmetic stuff goes. That you literally have to sacrifice some stats if you just want to go for a look that you like, or you're just going to end up with a hodgepodge of like here. You're looking like some character from Name Your RPG, you know, just like a hodgepodge of a uniform. But luckily, if you do find stuff you do like, there is a system in place where you can upgrade it to keep that armor set stats and stuff relevant to the level of content you're at that point in time. But one thing to keep in mind with that, it's not just the stats. Different pieces of gear give different buffs and benefits. These buffs and benefits are known as mods. And something to know with mods, you can also swap out mods on equipment. So if you find a new piece of equipment you like, but it doesn't fit like your current build you're trying to do, you can get a mod that does fit that, and what you can do is you can put that mod on that current piece of armor, and there you go. Now it fits your build. And a side note, the way you get different mods is different equipment you pick up that has those mods. If you deconstruct them, you like permanently get those mods in your like available mod slot. So when you go to customize the gear, you can add that mod on there. Now, one thing to note, as far as I've played, I haven't played a lot of the end game stuff yet. But as far as I know right now, you can only change out 1 mod per piece of equipment. So any equipment that has like 2 mod slots already in there, you can only change 1 of them, and the other one gets like this lock picture over it. I don't know if that's something you can unlock later or not. Just FYI, but like starting off though, you can only change out 1. Now we get into the story. Like I said, light kind of spoiler warning here. This is only going to talk about like the premise and setup, like the early part of the game, like what the premise of the game is. But if you're looking to go in completely blind and want to be surprised with all the story aspects, go play at least the first parts of the game and then come back to the video. So the plot starts out very interesting and similar to Andromeda's setup. Basically, humanity's last hope on a distant planet due to Earth dying. Like I said, I'm not going to get to like specifics, but basically Earth is dying, so they needed to try and send humanity out across the stars. They found this planet, it's called Enoch, and they sent them all out there basically to reestablish a new Earth, a new homeworld for humans. Unfortunately, they arrived and there was this anomaly that was kind of causing havoc and really kind of messed it up. It ends up striking your character towards the end of it. And it was really surprising because this planet was very lush and green, right? And then they get into this one part where there's this anomaly. Like I said, your character gets attacked by it. And then they have to get thrown basically in the cryo, the freeze basically, to make sure they don't die. It's like, hey, we're gonna freeze you until we can figure out a way to like save you. But the game skipped forward a little bit. Your character gets woke up, and things go from 0 to 60 real fast. You are basically Captain America. You're a fish out of water, with no clue what is going on, or how long you were asleep. Like, these characters come in, they open up your cryopod, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. You walk outside, the world looks like Fallout. Like, all that lush green stuff is gone. It's nowhere to be seen. And you basically find out that the anomaly turned you into a god. I will say, even though this is a power fantasy, it's kind of a really well-done power fantasy. If you're into power fantasy games. Like, it's not Dark Souls where, like, you're this little, tiny little speck and everything can, like, one-shot you and stuff, and it's super like that. So yeah, basically, up until this point of the game, it seemed very, very much like similar to Andromeda, Mass Effect Andromeda's setup. But it starts deviating real quick, basically. Obviously. Yeah, it's at this point you find out. Not at all like Andromeda. Like I said, you're basically like a god compared to normal humans now. Because of this thing struck you, this anomaly struck you. Then you also discovered the original craft that brought all of you here to this planet, still floating up in the sky. But the problem is the anomaly basically renders all electronics and not all electronics, but like all like technology, like phones and stuff like that, any kind of transmitters and stuff, completely useless. It's all rendered completely obsolete. So basically you can't call up to the ship to release all of its supplies, because like the vast majority of supplies that you brought with you from Earth to establish new life, it's still up there, because they sent all the people down first. No one was left up there. They couldn't communicate with anybody. So everyone's trapped in this small valley with this anomaly with limited resources. And those resources up in those pods up in that ship would really help with supporting everybody, but unfortunately they're trapped up there. But you also eventually find out that they're, well, you don't eventually, you knew this from like the beginning, but there's this signal transmitting some kind of message or frequency. And so the assumption is that there's somewhere on the planet where a signal can get through. That means technology can work there, so you can basically call the pods in that spot and bring down all the supplies. It would really help things out. Maybe hopefully get people to stop being at war with each other over resources, and we could actually start building and everything. And the thought is that the signal's coming from somewhere beyond the anomaly, right? That's the hope. So that's your goal. That's the goal of the game right there, is to find this place beyond the anomaly and get these space pods called down so we can stop fighting and killing each other. So we can stop being this dystopian world, basically. So yeah, the goal of the game is basically to get those to come down. So, kind of basic in premise, but I think it's very interesting in execution. The story really gripped me from start to finish. There's a lot of twists after that. I'm not giving you the whole story. That's just literally the setup. It takes a few hours to get the whole setup, but that's basically the setup. There's a lot of other twists, turns to the story, characters to meet, all this and that in the game. I really suggest it. I know I said a lot of bad stuff about the game, but I was trying to be fair. I was trying to critique it, you know. There's a lot of good stuff. This game really kind of hooked me. I really enjoyed it, and I'm still playing it. And I think they sold it very terribly at that Square Enix presentation thing that they did. I don't think they did the game justice. I would recommend playing it, especially if you have Xbox Game Pass, because it's free. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you're liking my content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, this has been Solid Shepard. Until next time, I should go.